Hi, my name is Jeannette Travaline, and welcome to Dynamic Connections. Dynamic Connections is a talk show where you will learn about all kinds of businesses in Randolph and in the surrounding areas. So we thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm actually the CEO of the company, and CEO stands for the Chief Encouraging Officer, because I think it's important for all of us to encourage each other in our businesses. Tonight, my guest is Jacqueline Collins. She is the principal at Partnering for Performance and has 20 years experience in the development, design, and implementation of business strategies focused on organizational and business performance improvement. Wow, that sounds really important, and it is. So welcome, Jackie.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
I'm excited to be here.
Yep.
This is great.
It's
a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful idea.
Right, and Jackie and I have known each other for a while, so
Long time.
So it's really nice to interview somebody who I know is a wonderful, educated person who can share some good information with you tonight. So, Jackie, tell me, did you grow up in this area?
I did not. My father was in the service for 30 years, so my family traveled all over the world. So we originate in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, so I still have some relatives that are still there.
And you still have that accent.
I know, everybody tells me that. I know, I can't believe it. But they either say it's from New York or Pennsylvania, so those are the two accents that apparently stuck with me.
That's right.
You know.
Who has that Bostonian accent? We want you to have that.
Probably isn't going to happen at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's been too long.
Right, right. So that's interesting that you were a world traveler before you were even probably in college.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And actually, one of my fondest memories is when we lived in Japan. Like,
Really?
to me, Japan is clear as a bell. I went to kindergarten, first, second, and third grade there.
You did?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is so interesting. So did you have to learn their language, or because you were military you did not have to?
Well, we were military, but we didn't live on a military base. We lived in our own home, and we had a lot of Japanese friends, and we went to an integrated school. And that's what my parents wanted. So wherever we lived, we did that. We never went to just an American school. So it was a great experience because everywhere that we lived, we learned about all the different cultures, because that was my parents' belief. And that became my belief and my brother's belief, you know. So even now, when I travel, I don't stay at the usual hotels, or, you know, what's the point of going away if that's what you're going to do?
So you get in with the locals.
Absolutely.
Which is a great
It's
thing.
fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
So because you traveled the world, and this is so off topic about what we were going to
That's
talk
okay.
about, did you pick up any languages? I mean, being in Japan, kindergarten, first and second grade, that's when your mind can really pick up other languages.
But because English is their second language, the classes were taught in English. So like at recess, you'd hear the Japanese language. And the only thing I can remember is Ohayo gozaimasu, which
means?
Like hello type of thing.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, there were more phrases that I knew, but once you leave that environment, I mean, the bottom line is I was mainly with Americans after school.
Right.
You know, and though we had Japanese friends and we visited their homes, they spoke to me in English. You know, so, you know.
Yeah, and so
really,
Japan, you think, was your favorite place that you were?
It was. For some, I just have that fond, whenever anybody, even to this day, says Japan, my mind just zips right back to when we lived there. I don't know, there's something very
That's very interesting, because as you get older, I think, and you have more experience, your fears start to creep in. So that's why I love to be with little children.
I know.
Because they just say out what they say.
Right.
I wonder if that had anything to do with it.
Sometimes it's good that we don't do
Yes, that's true.
We might not be sitting here on the show either, so.
Right. So what brought you to finally come to Boston and live? Because I know you've been here for a while.
Yeah, because my parents, when my father got out of the service, he took a job as a vice president in an engineering company in Framingham. Right. And but I was going to school at the Iowa State University.
Oh.
Even though we had ended up back in Philadelphia for a while, but I went to Iowa State University because when I went to college, I originally wanted to major in drama.
No.
Oh yeah, because I was always in the drama club. I was in chorus. I played musical instruments and sang and danced and all that stuff. But my father sat me down. my father's an engineer, was an
Yes.
engineer, so very pragmatic. And he said, do you know how many people don't make it in that business? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what else do you like? I said, I love psychology. He goes, major in psychology.
Yeah.
So I majored in psychology, minored in sociology, and then switched my minor. I kept sociology as part of my program, but then I majored in organizational development with the psychology as the major. So I went to the Iowa State University because I wanted to get, I knew there were schools that you could get a bachelor's degree in 3 years, and they were one of the schools. And they had a very open environment where your major, especially if you were a science major, you didn't just stay in the classroom. So after my freshman year, part of my course requirement was observations with psychologists.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. I loved it. Yeah. So I got my bachelor's degree in 3 years. It was tough because you went like all through the summer,
right.
But that's what I wanted to do. And then I got my master's degree in about a year and a half after that because I enrolled in their master's program.
Right. Wow.
So,
and
yeah.
then you came
and then
to
I
Boston.
came here because
Yes.
my parents were in Framingham, and then they moved to Foxborough. So.
Oh, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
So when you were going to school for psychology because you always wanted to be in drama.
I know.
That's so funny because...
Well, some of this is drama, so.
Oh my goodness, isn't that funny?
Yeah, yeah.
Some of it is drama. So it's funny because your father influenced you, and my last guest's father influenced her as well in her
Well,
career.
at the time, I didn't look at it as a positive.
I know, and I probably,
I looked at it as, what do you mean I can't go to NYU? You know, I'm going to be famous someday.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, it was thank God, really.
Yes, well, yeah, everything
Oh my
probably happens
God.
for a reason.
Yeah.
So your dream was to be in drama, but then it changed. So when you were in psychology, then what is it that you thought you would do with that degree?
So I majored in child psychology.
Okay.
And then I became a licensed psychologist.
Oh, wonderful. And did you practice
I
psychology?
did, and I left it after about a year and a half, because the children, I wanted to take every child home with me because I worked with dysfunctional families, and it just broke my heart. It literally broke my heart.
Yeah.
I was very young. I remember at the time my mentor telling me, you either have to take a break and come back to it or just leave because you're hurting yourself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's when I switched it over to really focusing on psychology and organizations.
And I know you've had a couple of different careers. So after that, did you?
Oh, so yeah, I've owned other businesses.
Yes.
I owned.
Can you share with us?
Sure.
Yeah.
I owned a house cleaning service called the Dusty Rose, which kind of happened accidentally, but it worked out really good. And I did that for about 5 years. Then I sold that to a company called Mary Maids. I don't even know if they're still around.
Oh, yes, they are still around. They're a big company.
Yeah, and then I had opened up a retail store at Merchants Row Marketplace, and I was there for about 6 or 7 years. But that was also during the time when I went into financial services, and I was in the mutual fund industry for 10 years. And the retail store was a way for me to let my creative side out. So I did that while I worked, and I had hired a store manager, and then I worked nights and weekends. And then it got to the point where I was recruited into another company, and it was a very senior position. It was a director, which in that company meant, you know, you had this whole large span of control. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do both. But I took that, so I sold that too. I sold my
the retail
inventory, sold
business.
everything. And then when I took the job, the director job, I knew that if I took it, I would only have to work there for 3 years. And I could go out and start this business, which is what I really love and always in the back of my mind wanted to do.
Yes. Well, that's really good planning, especially when you're balancing an ownership of a company and then you have a big job. How, you know, that's like a work-life balance kind of thing that people talk about a lot.
Yeah, but I don't know if people really talked about it as verbally then as they do now.
No.
It was kind of like subtly talked about.
Yeah.
But I just had, like I said, in the back of my mind, I knew what I eventually wanted to do. Like I really did. And I just wanted to get to that point where I could say, I'm leaving.
Yes.
You know, so I got to the point financially where I knew that if I had one whole year with no clients, I would be okay.
That is kind of scary because there's things like health insurance and
Right.
any kind of benefits that
But
you were getting.
entrepreneurs have to look at that. They need to be conscious of what obligations they have, even to themselves. Even if they don't have a family, they still have to live and eat and take care of things.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
So you started a business.
I started Partnering for Performance.
And you started it then?
Yep.
Okay. So when you started it, what was your goal? What were you going to do with this business?
I wasn't sure.
Okay.
I really wasn't. I just knew that I wanted to help companies be better internally. I wanted to help their culture, internal culture, through communication and planning processes. And I had done a lot of graduate work at Northeastern, the Sloan School, MIT
yes.
Sloan School. So I prepared myself through the years that I was in the mutual fund industry by taking advantage of educational courses and programs that were offered because of the position I had. And so the first year that I was doing my business, I did a lot of work in Boston because I knew a lot of people in the financial industry.
Right.
But I didn't like it. I was not happy, and I was riding home on the T one day, and I said, why am I even doing this when the purpose for doing this was to be happier,
Yes.
not feel that stress or that political strife that's internal to large companies. And I took 6 months off and kind of reinvented myself, started networking on the South Shore, and knew that what my passion was to work with small businesses, because that was the underserved. Like, everyone wanted to work for the big companies because you made a ton of money.
Right.
But I'm like, well, how much money do you really need?
Right.
You know, I'm okay. I'm not wealthy. Do I ever want to be wealthy? I never really thought of it in those terms.
Right.
I just wanted to do what I was happy with, and I knew I could help small business owners, and I've been doing that ever since. So
Right.
It's been almost 20 years now.
Yes, like I read.
Yeah.
Yes, 20 years is a long time. So starting out the business the first year, you weren't sure what you were going to do. Has the business changed from that first or second year to now?
It's evolved. All businesses have to evolve.
Yes.
But also, I was a person who evolved. So, like, there were other interests that I found that I had that I wanted to dive deeper in from an educational standpoint. And then I'm just one of these people, when I read something interesting or learn something, I want to share it with everybody.
Right.
So instead of doing everything more as a training, which I never really want to do, but that's what it ended up, I wanted to do more as a coach, business coaching and consulting. So focusing on small businesses always needed so much help that I was able to step into all their different realms. So, and it was great. And one of the things that makes it so interesting is that it's all different industries.
Right.
So I'm constantly meeting new people, constantly learning about new businesses. And you know that saying, everybody has a story. It's so true. Every business has a story, and they're fascinating. And these people that go out on a limb to start these businesses and maintain them and want to improve, they're amazing people. Everyone's amazing.
Well,
you know,
you
it's
sound
a
like
risk.
you're amazing to actually have taken your retail place and sold it, and then in your mind saying, I'm going to do this, so I'm preparing to do it. And you went out on a limb as well.
No, I know. Well, it was only because I had all the clothes that I wanted. Literally, I went home and opened my closet.
No.
I did, and I stood there, and I'm like, what do I really need? This is crazy.
Yeah, right, yes.
You know, so why would I put myself through that misery that I felt? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this is just way too much.
Right. So
Yeah.
I met you probably 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And so,
6 or 7.
was it even
Oh,
more
yeah.
than that? Oh, yeah, time
Remember,
goes on,
it's
doesn't it?
2018,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, time goes on. But I have seen in your business some change, and is it a change or transition as we talk about that?
It's shifting.
And I think that's what happens, and you're absolutely right. Nothing stays the same.
Nothing.
Everything changes. But you've done a wonderful job, in my opinion, to have kept your momentum and everything. So tell us a
Thank you.
couple of the programs that you actually run. And one of them I was part of. I was in her discussion group program. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So I started discussion groups as a way to help keep business owners together in small groups so that they could help each other and kind of basically become each other's advisory boards. So I started facilitating those and starting them in different areas. And they're still going, and no one ever leaves, which is great, but it gives everybody an opportunity to learn at a different pace and on a different level, as well as sitting there and you're discussing issues and somebody comes up with an idea and someone else will say, I never thought of that, and then I say to them, well, think of how you can adapt that to your need, So I feel that what I bring to the table with these groups is I help them look at things differently and help them, what I call challenge the status quo, that you have to challenge a status quo. You have to be creative. Our environment requires it. And if you don't, then you don't stay relevant, and then you go away.
Right. So I really enjoyed my time. I haven't been back, but I need to come back to your discussion groups. She has a wonderful way about making us do our homework kind of thing, which is great because you need somebody like that in your life to help you with your own business.
I think it's the accountability factor. I think that's what draws people to those
Yes.
small groups, is they know they're going to be held accountable.
Right, that's your tagline, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm your accountability partner.
Yeah, I'm your accountability partner.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So besides the business discussion groups, what else is it that you do now? Today you were somewhere, and what were you doing today?
So today I was with the Norwell VNA, and I do a lot of leadership development for companies. So I work with their executive teams. So the NVNA is a new client, and today was our first session to kind of figure out, what's the path that we're on and where do we go from here, So yeah, it's exciting. I love running the leadership development because each one is different. I mean, there's basic tenets of leadership, but the environment that those tenets exist in then require that the approach may be a little bit different.
Right. So I would not consider the Norwell VNA to be a small business. Do you consider that a small business?
Not really.
Yeah.
It's not a big business.
Right. It's not.
And I'm not working in the whole company. I'll help other management levels,
Right.
But yeah, I have clients like the Arc of the South Shore isn't small either. But the clients that I have like that, it's just very focused on what I'm either working with their boards or I'm working with their boards and their executive teams. Because the board is the governance side of things, and then the executive team is, they do their strategic planning, and I help them with that, and then we go to the board and we say, what do you think? But then I have to help them get on board with what the plan is and why the plan is heading in a certain direction. So it's interesting. It keeps it very interesting.
Right. And those are two nonprofits that you talked about. So do you look...
And the conservatory, South Shore Conservatory.
So you work with a lot of nonprofits,
Yeah.
So those are, I would think those would be on a bigger scale, but do you do sole proprietorship? Do you coach those, or do you help those kinds of businesses? I know
my God.
A couple of them were in my business discussion group, so I know that you do work with them.
I do a lot of coaching, a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I love it.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Right.
And I see the benefits. I'm able to see the results by working with those folks, and they look at me as their helpmate, and that's what I want to be.
That's awesome.
But at a level that still holds them accountable.
Yeah.
Like they know
that's
the next time we meet that they better have done their homework. And they always say to me, I told my husband, I have to do this homework for Jackie.
And they're like, who is this Jackie person?
Yeah, like, who is that,
Right.
But it's great.
Right.
It's great.
So I hear that you have a new event, that's the wrong word, but a new...
Lead and Thrive.
Yes. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Because that sounds so interesting to me.
So Lead and Thrive is a leadership program for women. And it's in collaboration with another consultant who is in the communication field, Stacy Shipman. And what the program is comprised of, we feel like we're bringing a really different approach to leadership development, because our philosophy and my belief has always been everything starts with you. So it's 3 half-day sessions, one in October, one in November, one in December, and then conference calls, what do you call them, through the computer?
Webinars?
Webinars, you know. some individual coaching in between, because there's homework and assignments, and it's really a deep dive. So the first topic, which starts October 3rd, is lead yourself. And then the second one is leading others, and the last one is leading your business. So leading your business is for anyone who has a business, or they're an independent professional, or they're a decision maker in a company. So yeah, this is hopefully an annual thing.
Great. That's great.
Yeah. So.
One of the things that you've always told us is that you really need to have a plan to have a business.
Yeah.
So it's that sitting down and saying, oh, I have to write a business plan, and how does that happen? But you've shortened that up for people.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be. The only time you need a really in-depth plan of a lot of pages is, you know, banks require particular things. If you need funding, then you have to really cross your T's and dot your I's, as my mother used to say. But there's a one-page business plan that you can do, that you can get your thoughts down on paper, at least, you know, vision, mission, your core values, and now what are your strategies and what are your goals. So that at least forms a baseline for where you think you want to go. And then from that, I work with them on working all that out. And a lot of times, once you start stretching it out and really refining it, you find that what you originally wrote may not work anymore. You know, but again, it's a baseline. It's a way to get your thoughts down on paper in a structured way.
Right.
You know, so they're not just sticky notes all over the place.
Right. So then that's a fluid document.
Yeah, very fluid. Business plans are always fluid. They're never written in stone.
If I were an entrepreneur or entrepreneur wannabe out in the audience, and I wanted to start a business, your recommendation would be a business plan first, and then other plans that people need to look at? I mean, just a quick little...
There's a lot of things people need to look at. But the first thing you have to do is look at your financial status, you know, and ask yourself the very honest question as, am I in a position to even spend money to start this process, you know? And the other part of that is, as a business owner, there's a certain discipline you have to have, and you have to stay very focused, be very clear, keep your eye on your environment, the changes, so that you know when you have to shift. And you have to be honest with yourself and know, well, as a sole proprietor, can I work by myself?
Right.
Or am I going to be sitting at my desk wishing I was having coffee with a friend? You know, seriously, you know, not everybody has that mindset to be able to do that. So that's why I always advise sole proprietors to make sure that you build a network around yourself, build a network of experts, and you know, go to those people and ask questions, ask for their advice, get them together, you know, sit and discuss things with them, listen, don't operate in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, and build your social network, get involved in other things so that you are not alone.
So that just segues me right into your community service that you do. But before we go there, I just want to ask you, did you ever have a mentor or somebody that helped you along, or somebody that you admired that you wanted to be like? I know that sounds kind of corny, but you know, somebody, I don't know if maybe you said, you are my mentor because I listened to what you say, or you never said that, he just was in your mind your mentor, or she? No? Isn't that funny?
No, my lessons learned were just taking a misstep and learning from that. I mean, at the time I was starting my business, there really wasn't a lot around to help you.
Right.
You know, unless it was a formal class. I did join the South Shore Women's Business Network all those years ago. They were just starting out, and so I was able to gain access to a social network of other women entrepreneurs. But I do business with men and women, and I didn't want to be isolated.
Right.
And that's when I became involved. That's when I started looking at other organizations and going to different things. I joined Rotary. I was a Rotary member for a long time.
What Rotary were you?
Weymouth.
Weymouth, yep.
And then I became involved with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, and that opened the door to meeting a lot of different people in different businesses at all different levels. So that's using your active listening skills and paying attention to what people are saying. So of course there were people along the way, a lot of people that encouraged me and had words of wisdom to say, but I honestly can't point to any one thing or one person.
Right, right. So let's talk about the South Shore Chamber and your involvement in there, because I remember being so proud of you.
Oh.
So one thing that you talked about was networking, and I agree with you that it's most important if you're in your own business that you have a group of networkers or people that you know. So if you can just share with our audience, how do you do that? You know, how do you walk into a room of people that you don't know to network? How do you start that?
There's always, I know, there's like this formula,
That's-
pre-network, during the network, after the network. First of all, you have to know why you're even going. Like, what is it that you want to accomplish? And set a goal around that. I used to do it, and this is what I tell clients to do. Set a goal of meeting 1 or 2 new people. Like, don't just gravitate to the people you're going to recognize. If it's something you've never been to before, then it's great because you know nobody, and now you have the opportunity to really meet people. But don't think that you have to meet 50 people, because when you see just giving a card out and taking a card doesn't build a relationship. It's just a transaction with no meaning behind it. So you need to be clear in your head why you're going. Sometimes you just go to these things because you just need the social activity. And then other times you go because you really do want to meet other business people and you want to get your name out there and it's part of your marketing plan. But know what you want to get out of it and set that goal. Limit it to a certain number of people that you know you have the time to then follow up and have coffee with and build that relationship. Right. No one's going to give you business that day, you know, and they may not even be your primary client. Someone may be impressed by what you're doing, or you may, you know, have your 30-second spiel down perfect, and someone is going to leave that night and then call a friend the next day and say, hey, I met this person that does so-and-so, you might want to call them. So, you know, it's really looking at building the relationship, because that's where business comes from relationships.
Okay, you just mentioned a 30-second spiel. Do you think anybody out there knows what that means?
People call it your elevator speech. There's a lot of names that it's given. It's just really knowing what your business is. So it's knowing who you do it for, what they get out of it, and then what you do. And there's a why component to that. You know, there's a very famous person, Simon Sinek, and everybody in business and business schools knows who he is. He developed this model called the why. It's a why model, the golden circle.
I almost brought that book with me. The book that he wrote about the
fabulous.
why. Yes.
It's fabulous.
I'm getting a wrap up from her. That's
okay.
not making me happy, but
okay,
but
that's
anyways,
okay.
Yeah. But I know that you're very active in the South Shore Chamber. I know you were chairman, which makes me so proud of you.
Thank you.
Because the South Shore Chamber was traditionally known as, you know, a lot of guys that were the black suits there, and you were one of the very few women, and I congratulate you on that. It must have felt really good to do that.
It felt really good, and it was also scary.
I'm sure.
You know,
I'm sure.
But then you kind of get over it, and you say, well, I am who I am.
Right.
And this is what I'm bringing to the table.
Right. That's right. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. This went by too quickly. You have to come back again sometime.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Yes, awesome.
You,
and thank you all out there for tuning in to Dynamic Connections. So be dynamic, keep smiling because it's contagious. Good night.